Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the 5th episode of Her Protocol Project podcasts. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Anki Godawszky, who's a CBT therapist. Anki, can you please explain to us what does that actually mean?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me to this
problem.
podcast. I'm very happy to be here.
Sure.
A CBT therapist is, it comes from cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
So it means to work with the connection between thought, feelings, and behavior. What we do, that is what we see. That is what everybody sees about you, about me, and that is what people interpret.
Right.
But the behavior comes way before that. And sometimes we refer to that I was feeling a certain way, and that made me do this.
So is a feeling connected to the action that comes right after that?
Exactly,
right?
But it doesn't start there. Mm-hmm. That's why we work with the triad of thoughts, feelings, and behavior. Everything you do starts up here. The way your frame of thoughts, how you think about yourself, how you think about the world. And that results in feelings, emotions, and that in turn turns into a behavior. And this it goes really quickly. It's like this.
So excuse me if I'm not understanding this correctly, but what you are actually working on with the person is the way the person changed the way the person feels. So his behavior, the outcome of the behavior is different.
More about putting focus on what you think.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So put the focus on what you think, but also be aware of what you're feeling. You have to be aware and put attention to your feelings, because those are kind of flags. They're flags.
Is this rewiring our?
Yes, it's about it's about how our brains are wired.
Right.
And then we work, when we sort of map that out, you work with how to find strategies to change your behavior.
Right.
Yeah, if you want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, that's a bespoke work, right? Every client is different, and what you're doing is creating a manual how that person can work on becoming a better outlet.
Exactly. How to express yourself in a more constructive way, but also finding new strategies that will bring balance into your life.
That's amazing. So, I think it's such a delicate yet strong work that you're doing.
Can
you tell us where you work at right now?
Right now I work at a place called In Harmony Rehab in Marbella. And it's a clinic for mental health, but also for harmful use, meaning that if you use drugs or alcohol in a way that hurts yourself and maybe people around you. But we also work with people who might have some sort of gambling problem. It could be...
so any kind of addiction, really?
Basically, yeah.
Right. Anki, I have written down a couple of questions for you. And of course, we might go off topic. That's absolutely fine. But there are some that I was thinking are going to be quite important. Let me start with the first one.
Yeah.
So can you take us back a little? Who were you before this particular work found you?
I was living and working in Sweden, where I'm from.
Hello, people.
In the Stockholm area, and I've worked in this field for 25 years now, or more even.
Right.
So, and I used to live in the Stockholm suburbs, and I worked, just prior to this, I worked at a help center for supporting people anonymously. Right. Who were scared of seeking help the traditional way or had questions. So it was a lot about supporting by, answering questions in writing, but also phone calls, like anonymous phone calls. There was a helpline.
I see. It was it a social kind of work, a social work?
Yeah, but it was connected to the health services. And it's not social services, but health services.
Health services. Yeah. That's amazing to have that service actually in your country, right?
Yeah. But I've also worked I've been a manager for 8 years in social services also.
Anki, what comes to my mind, right now we talk a lot, especially in neuroscience, about how child's development actually impacts our brains. And also it's very connected to the addictions in a way. A lot of children who are mistreated end up being addicted to various substances, alcohol, drugs, you name it, right?
Yeah.
Do you also share this opinion?
I think if you talk about socially marginalized groups and children, yes, there is a prevalence of that in those groups and socio-economical challenge groups. But also, and I think we sort of overlook this very much, is people come from a stable background. They've been having everything you could ask for materially and financially.
Emotionally too?
Well, yeah, it could be emotionally, but usually it is something that is lacking in that area. You're looking for something. Some people also use just for the kicks. It's fun.
Right. I've had a lot of friends when I was in college that grew out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sometimes it's part of growing up, and sometimes you get stuck.
Sometimes you get stuck. So this is when you come in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. My next question would be, so you've worked with addiction, mental health, and people reintegrating into society. Going back to your past, was there something specific that drew you into this field from your own experience in life?
Absolutely. Like many people who in my line of work, you have your own experience.
Calling.
Yeah. Either that you grew up with some sort of addiction in your family, close family, or mental health problems that you're trying to understand.
Where it comes from.
Yeah, you're trying to understand yourself also. And you're trying to understand the addiction in itself. Because it creates a lot of confusion, and it creates a lot of shame and guilt. And that is usually what you're trying to figure out. By learning more, by working with it. Sometimes people are not even aware that's why they've chose this field. Yeah. But
are you closer to the answers?
Yes. Oh yes. Yes, I know exactly why I'm here.
Oh, yeah. That is brilliant. Yeah. That's such an amazing line of work. Right. You've moved from Sweden to Spain. That's very interesting because most of us that we interview here at the moment, we are expats, right? Yeah. We come from various countries.
Yes, we do.
How that actually shaped you, how this has changed the way you've been working in your field. Has that had any impact?
I think it's that was actually a question I found when I had a look at them beforehand. That was a question I had to think about a little bit. Because it's not, I think I'm still finding out the differences or working in Spain is very different from working in Sweden. Now
everybody says it's very different.
It's so different because in Sweden it's very structured. You have all these guidelines.
System works differently as well.
It's a very efficient system.
Is that system more pro humans, pro people? I mean, I am comparing this to the English system. Obviously, I've worked. I haven't worked in the medical field, but I do know how English system works, and I do compare it to the Spanish one. And over there, everything is more accessible to people and more structured.
Yes.
But also, there's no judgment.
No.
Which I liked. People are very open to your problems, and they have this mental health, addiction, knowledge about things like this happening, and knowing that this has some sort of there's a background there, and they accept it. Yes, you are as you are. You are perfect the way you are. Okay, let me help you. In Spain, I do feel judgment towards you not being strong enough or not dealing with this. Do you have the same?
I wouldn't say I have the same experience. I would say in Sweden still there's a lot of stigma around these questions.
That's exactly the word I should use, yes.
And even though there is a more... they allow more here when it comes also to whether you use or drink. There's another. It's a cultural difference in Spain compared to Sweden. Because in Sweden, there's like, you have no, you can't use like, let's say, cannabis. You cannot use it for your own purposes.
So here it's more normalized.
Yeah, it's more normalized.
Yes, right.
And allowed.
Yes.
Sort of legally.
Yes.
You will have. We haven't gotten to that point in Sweden yet. So that is one difference. But I would say when it comes to working here, it's since we work mostly with international clients. We never had a Spanish client.
So, therefore,
there is a difference in how you approach the subject, I think, and also my lack of knowledge, maybe, what it would be like to work with someone from Spain.
Understood.
Yeah.
Going more into health, mental health, and addiction, that is actually a good question for our podcast. Do you think that women struggle differently? From your experience?
Yes. Yes, they do. I'd say the stigma when a woman has a challenge when it comes to harmful use or problems with that, or if she has mental health problems, I think the stigma is greater because she is supposed to be...
Is she judged more?
She's
not allowed to be addicted in that way?
I would say that people think that when especially if you're a mother...
Right, of course, yes.
Then it becomes a bigger issue. And yes, I would say that there might be harder judgment on a woman. Like for instance, if you have to leave your children to take care of yourself, that is seen as something problematic compared to if a man does it.
See, but how you can get better if you don't allow this time?
Exactly.
Right, that's a big problem. But yes. I think with everything yesterday, I just had a thought in my head because we were talking about in general about burnouts, and in my head, I was as a woman, even if you take time off work and you have this privilege not to be working and say, okay, I'm tired, I have this job and it doesn't suit me anymore. You still have children to take care of.
Yes,
you never have that time to really go off somewhere for a couple of weeks and people not judge you or allow you to do it. There's no such thing as taking vacation from your life, is it?
No. And
for your mental health or for anything else.
And that is why a lot of women struggle with exhaustion.
Yeah.
And being, like you said, burnout. That extreme exhaustion is something that we see in a lot of female clients. That they have been struggling for a long time, taking care of everything, but they haven't taken care of themselves.
Yes. Yeah. Is there a solution?
Yes.
Come to Marbella, come to the clinic.
Well, that's not the only solution. That's one solution.
Okay.
But there's
I'm really curious to hear. Like, how can we... okay, let's just say I have a gambling addiction.
Yeah.
Is this something that you also treat? Yes.
Yes, we do.
With your line of work.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you recommend for someone who sees that, okay, I'm running away from my life into something else?
Well, the first thing is you recognize the signs quite late.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, it's when
you always have excuses for yourself first. No?
Yeah, when you're trying to solve a problem, and you have coping skills.
Yes,
that make you manage, and then eventually, when the consequences or the burden of everything becomes too much, then it's like you almost go into a like paralyzed state, like you completely stop doing things because you're so exhausted. But the red flags are there much earlier, usually, and it could be being not being able to sleep, not self-medicating somehow to cope. It can be that your relationships, your communication is not working with your family. You feel alone. There could be a number of things that you sort of are red flags.
And you overlook.
And you overlook them, you explain away them, you minimize them, because you want to do your best, because that's what people do usually every day.
And what everybody expects of you in the society, right?
Yes. It has, of course, it's about how people view you. absolutely.
So how do you cope by yourself? What would you, let's just say, I have noticed that my life is getting a little bit out of control. I have this addiction, let's just say it's gambling at night. I do casinos or something.
Yeah.
What would you say the first steps would be for you after recognizing that, yes, there might be an issue?
Asking for help.
Right. Asking for help.
Which is the hardest thing to do for
Right.
many people, to ask for help.
In what sense? Like, you mean your husband, or go to a professional, or?
It could be either or. You know, if you have been coping for a long while, that step of asking for help means that you have capitulated.
So you have to admit there's been a mistake done.
Yes, you have to sort of, well, not admit, but start exploring a little bit about...
And prepare to change.
Yes, and be prepared to change. And if you haven't come to the step that you actually have a lot of motivation, because we also work with a lot of, you know, how to build motivation, because that's not something that we have in us internally, naturally. It comes and goes. Motivation is something that it's a daily job.
Yes, it's a struggle.
Yeah,
Every day you have to get up and you need to make sure. I know my struggle in the morning. Sometimes I'm also tired, or even I write to Raluca. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. But then I have a coping mechanism. I put on positive music. I do some little exercises, not to overdo it, not to be too tired, but something at least.
Yes.
Have my coffee and just prepare positively to receive the day.
Yeah.
So I think everyone should have that, and recognizing that your structure is not fully working for you is the first step, and saying like, okay, so what's wrong? How can I change that? Are your clients, the ones that you receive today for your therapy, are they ready 100%, or you've got clients, women, who say, I can't do it. I know there's a problem. I cannot do it.
We have a mix. We have those who come in and are just completely open to the program. They go in and absorb as much as they can during usually it's 28 days that their stay is.
Wow.
And then they just go full in, committed, because they have an internal motivation. They want to make the change.
They have invested the time.
Yes, they invested the time.
Funds. Yes. Probably everything. They had someone telling them, you've got to do it. There is a problem. You've got to do it.
Yeah, and they might have been in rehab before also, so they have some experience. Then there are those who come that are mainly driven by external motivation. That is a partner who says, enough. You have to go seek help, or they do it for their children, which is also a good motivation to start with.
Amazing, yes.
There could be friends who's been worried, or extended family. Work could, tell them, hey, if you're gonna keep working here, you need to do something about this. This is affecting you and the workplace. So it can come from different places. So that is there's a different approach. You have to start building motivation first with a person who comes because somebody else told them to.
What about people that think they've ruined it all? There's nothing. They
feel helpless.
They feel helpless. They have lost everything they had. Well, some addiction can cost you everything in life.
Yes, absolutely.
The extreme cases. How what's the percentage of them remaining in the program, believing things can change and actually changing?
Well, then you have. This is something also. One of the questions was like misconceptions about rehab.
Yes.
It's not a quick fix.
Exactly, because you're saying 28 days.
Yes. So to come in 28 days, but still you're not done after 20. You have a foundation to build on, and because it's a very extensive, intensive program, you have daily activities from morning to evening. Weekdays, and then you have a little bit more relaxed during the weekends, but there's still a therapeutic part. So you have to work with yourself constantly for 28 days. But
sorry,
still,
yes.
If you have that to overcome also yourself and your will to change, if you want to change or not, that is what we're trying to find out also. In what capacity do you want to change? And if so, how?
It's like a self-audit in a way.
Yes, you can say that.
How does CBT comes into the program? Like, how much of that program will be your therapy?
Quite a lot, because you work with, not just when it comes to harmful use of drugs or alcohol, it also comes into mental health. It's about how you relate to yourself and others in relationships, your communication skills, about closeness with others. Do you feel connected to a community or to people around you? Because it's always ends in how much connection do I have in my life?
It's very interesting, because the people who live the most on earth are usually the ones who have the community around them and build happy relationships.
Yes.
So that program helps you to achieve that.
Well, yes, to get closer to that. Some people, we also have to consider the fact of autonomy. It's so important to feel autonomous, that you are the one who make the decisions from your own inner core, that this is what I want to do, this is good for me, and this is what I think I'm capable of. Because there's also that, like you said, when you feel hopeless or you feel that you have nothing to give, then you have to start looking at that. What do I have? My identity, my how I perceive myself. What kind of self-talk do I have?
What about the guilt?
Yeah, that's part of the self-talk.
Why so many people end up in rehab so many times, especially if it comes to drug use?
It's because there's a difference between guilt and shame.
Right.
Guilt is about what you do, your actions. And shame is about you, your identity, how you feel and think about yourself. So usually is guilt you can work with much easier. You can apologize, you can say you're sorry, you can atone if you want, if that is the word to use, for whatever happened or you did or said. But when it comes to shame, that is an existential thing. You have to work with much deeper about with the thinking of you. How do I think about myself? What are my daily thoughts?
About myself.
Yes. Do I wake up thinking that I'm no good? Nobody has any need for me. I'm ugly. I'm not good at anything. And feeling mostly self-hatred, self-loathing.
So you create your reality in a way. So it's like a closed circle. If you don't have if you don't feel good about yourself, how can you be good to other people? How can you create good outcomes? How can you create better life for yourself and other people? Yeah. And therefore, you go back to the starting point again.
Yes, you do. But also we have to take into account something that is called attachment styles. And we work a lot with that as well. And it's about whether you have been growing up, have you had your needs met?
That's exactly the part of childhood that's really important. Yes. Because the child doesn't know that I think the child blames himself very often. Not that the parent wasn't able to provide the right stability, right?
Well, the thing is, we have something that usually we pass on things from generation to generation.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So if you have a parent who is not able to give or meet your child's or the child's emotional needs, because it's basically you can feed them, clothe them, all of that, but if the emotional needs have not been met, then there will be a gap there. And that gap, the child will fill that with its own interpretation of things.
Right. And how can you do it being just a child?
Yes.
How can you do it in a healthy way?
Yeah. This is formed between, when you're born up until the age of 5. That the attachment style is established then.
Can it be fixed?
You can repair it. You can move to, there's, the attachment styles are anxious, disorganized, avoidant, and secure.
There's so many.
So if, like I say, I used to be an avoidant. I have an avoidant attachment style based on me being having to fend for myself. I had to take care of things myself. I had to make my way without too much parental support. So then and that can turn into something called toxic independence, that you don't ask for help in any circumstances, because that will be a defeat.
Which destroys you.
Yes, exactly.
Little by little.
Yeah, it feels like that is a threat, basically, to do that. How can you depend on anyone else? You can only depend on yourself.
Yes.
So, but gradually through, my own work with myself and learning things, I moved to a more secure attachment. And this is usually what, and most of us do that naturally also, because in life we do evolve, we don't stay the same, so we work and move into some other phase of security.
That is correct.
Yeah. So not everybody has to go to therapy for that, but it's one of the parts that we work with quite a lot in child work, attachment style and inner child work at In Harmony.
Going back to the topic of women, what's the percentage of women that come to your clinic and ask for help compared to men? Do you think women are more...
There are more men coming, absolutely. We have, I would say, let's say if I'm going to, 20%.
20%?
Yeah.
20%?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, it could be that
is this the mother topic, the parenting?
It could be taking the time off, taking the time for yourself, taking a whole month away. Or sometimes they choose to come shorter just because of that. They cannot stay away for a whole month.
It's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. So that could be one issue. It could be just, to commit to 28 days can be very difficult when you're the one feeling the full responsibility of your family and everything. But also could be those high functioning women also. They're busy, they're working.
Yes. Yeah. Wow, I have not been expecting that. Or women are just not being problematic. No, I know it's not the gender issue in terms of a lot of people put all the responsibility for running the house onto women's shoulder. Yeah. And men are allowed, aren't they, in many ways to make mistakes. We've allowed them through history to go gambling, off you go to the bar. It's more like acceptable, isn't it?
Yes, we have societal norms and cultural norms that are still affecting that balance, absolutely. And I would say that women is at a disadvantage when it comes to having access to this kind of help. They are less inclined to. I mean, they seek support in their own family or with their friends a lot. So sometimes they can get help that way as well, because usually women are usually better
at seeking.
Yeah, seeking out,
help.
Finding a solution, because that's a way of dealing with life that they've always had.
Going back to my childhood, I can relate to it very much. I would had my mother who stopped her professional life because there was a child in the house. My father, who was very masculine, saying, no, your job is to remain in the house. So he was allowed all sorts of mistakes. He had this margin of, because I work, I provide, I need to let my steam out in a way. I can go gambling, I can do this, I can go drinking and all of that. If my father would come home and my mother would be drinking, oh my God, I cannot even imagine this scenario. However, when my father would come drunk, he was
just him.
Yes, he was stressed at work.
Yeah.
So
that's very common.
That's very common, right? For the 20% that come and they're lucky enough to have that time for themselves, or what are the main problems? I'm talking about women specifically. Of course, men are equally important. However, that podcast is mostly about women.
Well, exhaustion, depression, anxiety. Usually also self-medicating through alcohol or pills.
Yes.
Or pills, I would say. Or prescription pills or medication. But they're overusing it. So it could be, those are the main reasons usually that women seek help for. For men, it can be, it's the same, but it's also more about, they also use other drugs, usually. A combination, alcohol, cocaine, cannabis are the most common.
I think they're more prompt to be more risky, the behaviors.
Yeah, and they party more. You know,
Yes, they do.
Because cocaine, you know, also.
Yeah.
Alcohol, cocaine, they go out and some of them could be just sitting at home also, but it's more not as common. They're usually more extrovert when it comes in their addiction.
Yes.
But they usually have the same, like other mental health problems are. It could be exhaustion, but that it doesn't show the same way. But also depression, anxiety.
How does it show in women?
Exhaustion?
Let's say...
they're closed off. Very closed off.
So, just so that podcast is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And there are women listening to it, and they're saying, do I have a problem? When do you know to seek help? Where is that line that you draw that, okay, I need to start seeking help now?
Well, first of all,
in terms of many things.
Yeah, because it can be also very individual. But it is when there is, when there's not very much joy in life. When there's more focus on I have to than I want to, that I choose to. When you have more focus on I want to, I must to, then focus on I choose to, I want to.
Don't we have all the excuses as women?
Yeah,
I don't feel happy. My life has changed, but because I'm a woman, because I'm taking care of the children, because I'm 40-something and I'm perimenopausal, because I have kids and I'm losing my joy. So are women using all those excuses but not getting to the core of the problem, which is this can be fixed? This is not all the external factors.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, since it's they relate to each other, the external issues and the internal.
Right.
So one gives the other, or they amplify each other. So that if you have an internal emotional issue or mental health issue that you actually feel very afraid, that you feel that you can't function, because it's a lot about that, about your daily functions. How does this affect my everyday life? And if you sort of notice that I don't enjoy myself, I don't like what I do, I feel sad a lot.
I hate my kids.
Yeah, well, exactly.
I hate my husband.
Yeah, exactly. That could be actually one of those extreme feelings.
Yes.
But then it's gone quite far when you sort of when you come into that is sort of a daily thought. Mainly it's about me feeling more sad, angry than anything else.
How do you start changing that with your therapy? What would be the starting point?
The starting point would be to finding out, exploring things, exploring what did it used to be like. Is there something we can find in the way it used to be that can be helpful today? If not, what can you see looking ahead? You're looking both back now and ahead.
Can you enjoy? Can you have a goal? Can you create a goal
exactly.
so you can be excited about?
That is also about assessing whether you have thoughts about not wanting to live.
Yes, that's a serious
that is also an
issue.
assessment in that you do an assessment about whether you have any prospects or any goals or any enjoyment looking forward to. Because if it's like black in that direction, then we have to start working here and now about, okay, how can we gain some different energy? How can we, because we also work a lot with energy, how to restore energy, how to gain more energy, and what energy means to us in life.
And make sure it's a positive outcome.
Yeah. How much more positive energy can I get in life than I have now?
But that brings me hope. I have to admit, because I'm 45 at the moment, and I need to. Sometimes I wake up and I think to myself, "Wow, the time just flew by." I've lived through many things, but I feel, "Wow, I'm almost, 20 more years, 30 more years. How long do I have to live?" And then this is the time when you start seeing people getting sick, your parents being taken away from you. Yeah. This is a very tricky age. But what you're telling me right now gives me a lot of joy, because sometimes I feel, okay, Anita, you need to really get more of life, but restore yourself again. And this is exactly what you are proposing. Your therapy is doing just that. Finding joy in everyday life, because it's not over.
No.
It's just the beginning of something else.
Yes. And those kind of changes that women go through in life, that we have, like, I'm past, I'm way into menopause.
This is a very tricky time, and it's not being talked about enough.
No, but it's also very empowering.
Yes.
To be where, when you sort of come over that threshold, that is like...
I've been there. I've rediscovered myself. I'm mature enough.
Yeah. So you have to give yourself also credit, and also that give yourself credit for what you do, what you've done. Because we don't...
What you've achieved. The children that you have.
Exactly. To actually put up all your stars that you created, all your achievement, because the brain tend to focus on the negative,
right,
or what we didn't do.
Yes, that's why we have bad news. They bring more attention to us than the positive news, and we always look. It comes from a primal instinct, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we just need to make sure that there's a lot of beautiful things in our lives that we can focus on.
Yeah.
All right, Anki, this was a very interesting conversation. Let me see what other questions I also have. Well, this is actually very interesting. What are the common misconceptions about recovery from addiction?
That it's something that happens in seclusion. It's only concerns the person who are in rehab, but that is the misconception. It affects everybody around.
Exactly.
Yeah, but also that can also be the misconception that from, let's say, loved ones, that they think, okay, now you're fixed. Now you've done your...
Okay, you've had your time. Just move on. Let's go back to normal stuff.
Go back to normal.
Yes.
It's not going back. It's going forward in a different way.
Absolutely.
So that thing about creating normality the way it were by going to rehab, that's not what's happening. You're in a process of developing, exploring yourself, finding new ways, getting to know yourself. And then those changes are also going to affect your surroundings, your loved ones.
Do you meet with the loved ones as well? Do you have sessions with the families?
We have some work with loved ones. We do couple counseling when asked. We also do separate counseling for loved ones to work with how to relate to the person, how to communicate, how to take care of yourself, because loved ones have struggled usually for a very long time living with someone who has some sort of harmful use or other addiction.
Yes, watching it every day.
Taking care of things, controlling things, forgetting about their own needs. They're always there for the other person. Taking care of, cleaning up, whatever happens.
Isn't that an unhealthy relationship?
Yeah. It's something what we call, I don't like that word, but it's something called codependency.
Right.
I'm not so familiar. For me, it's more about coping. It's a coping strategy. It's not codependency. It's a coping strategy.
I think that could be a very separate subject as well.
Yeah.
But I remember I've had neighbors living next to my apartment, and the man had a big problem with abusing alcohol.
Yeah.
And he did go to a rehab, but when he came back, everything was fine for a little bit, but the wife didn't feel herself again.
No.
Like her identity has been lost.
Yeah.
So she started like pushing him to drink again. Is that possible?
That happens. But it's not the first time I hear that.
Wow.
It's like, well, I knew the other person. I knew what to expect. This new person who doesn't drink, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know them. I don't know what. I don't feel safe anymore. Could be that, because we are creatures of habit, and even though we want to change, when the change appears, it's not for sure that we want it, especially when it's not our own change.
Absolutely.
But we
are afraid of it.
Yes, we are afraid of it. So that working with yourself in addiction is, you have to take into account, this is gonna be something that everybody around the person will have to also make some changes.
Exactly.
When it comes to how you communicate, how you relate to each other, maybe this person chooses to do something completely different in their life. They're not going to be, maybe they want to go explore themselves, they want to do different activities. Because a lot of our social life is surrounded around alcohol, for instance.
That is correct.
Yeah, we go have a drink, of anything.
So the wife could be, so what we're going to do now?
Yeah,
all the evenings with the Kowalskis are not going to happen anymore.
Exactly, but because she might still be drinking, but in a completely safe way, that she's just normal drinking, whatever normal drinking is, but that you don't drink in excess, that you don't get drunk, that you don't have those kind of consequences in your life. Control drinking.
Exactly, so, you are controlling.
Yeah, exactly.
The habit.
Yeah. So so that is just like you said, that might happen. Yeah, go back to drinking. It was easier. Could happen.
Well, if someone is basically, if a woman comes to you and she says, the program is amazing. I feel I have a problem, but I cannot do the 28 days. And is there a way to connect with you online and do some sort of sessions online as well, so our viewers know?
Yeah, well, we don't have that yet. We don't have online sessions yet, because we need all the resources to be in the program right now that we have at the facility. What you can do is talk about, okay, is there any way that you could, is 14 days, and could that work for you?
Do they need to be removed from their life, from the environment around them to do the therapy?
Yes, you have to come to the clinic.
Got it. So this is probably why.
Yeah, because it's such a very intense program, so you can't just come in and out. So you have to. It's a residential clinic, so you stay there for the whole.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's close. That is also important.
That's very important. Yes.
Because there's a lot of people come there. They go through detox.
Meaning it's very hard for them in the first stages to just quit.
Yeah, you have to. We have medical supervision. We have a doctor in place. So then it's the first week usually. It's a physical detox that you're working with.
Wow.
So therefore, you cannot go out without staff outside the facility. You always have to have a company with some of the staff if you're going to go outside. It's for that reason, to make sure that the detox is safe.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think this is the only way forward, to be very serious about it. Otherwise, it's not going to work that well. No. Anki, so thank you very much for the interview. I think we're going to finish here. But do you have any final thoughts that you would think could help our listeners or any woman?
Yeah.
at different stages in life with
So
your kind of therapy.
Oh, thank you. I just want to talk directly then.
Let's talk directly.
Yeah. If you feel that you've sort of got stuck in life, that there's too much imbalance, that you're not feeling well, that you're very tired, have a lot of anxiety, feel sad, angry, don't hesitate to reach out and seek help. You could, if this is not an option in Harmony, there are so many other counselors out there or professionals that you could seek help with, because it's actually the first step to start talking about it and find out what would work in your life, because it's there's not fixed model for everyone. You have to choose your path, but there are different tools and strategies and support that you can get. Don't hesitate. Reach out.
Exactly. Especially here at our Hair Protocol Project, you're not alone. You have us, you have our podcast, you have our contact form. If you need any help, just reach out. Okay. Anki, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.